Welcome everyone to this very, very exciting webinar that Pua is beyond honored to be able to host and to share with you what will be, in Mirz Hashem, a very exciting discussion, an informative discussion, an inspiring discussion, all about surrogacy. I don't know why in recent weeks and months, we've been inundated here at Pua with questions about surrogacy. But recently, there has been a real uptick in questions regarding surrogacy, halachic questions regarding surrogacy, and hashkafic questions regarding surrogacy, and logistic questions. How do I find a surrogate? Is this okay? Just so many questions about surrogacy, and we decided as an organization that how better to service the community than to have a webinar where we can discuss some of these issues. And it is a very broad topic and there's tons to discuss. We will not get to everything this evening, but one element that we wanted to share with the community was not just your typical webinar where there's an interview with a doctor or the rabbi, but we actually wanted to bring it to life. And we wanted to present two couples that we as an organization have worked together with for a number of years now. I've personally spoken to both of these very brave couples, Robin and Sal and Shani and Larry. We've spoken many times over the years. And we spoke way back when surrogacy was kind of that, whether it was a fleeting thought, whether it was a fantasy, science fiction. But what's incredible is that both Robin and Sal and Shani and Larry both have had beautiful baby girls with their surrogates. And they are with us this evening to share a little bit about their story, their experiences, and give a lesson to us all on what does it mean to be a couple who needs to go through the surrogacy journey to have a child. Both Robin and Sal and Shani and Larry bring very different stories to the table. Their journeys are different journeys. Their experiences are different experiences. And we specifically chose these couples because they're coming from different angles and they have these different experiences. And it is our tefillah that they will serve as an inspiration to so many people here. The attendance right now is incredible. The registration was beyond belief. I was talking internally with a few of the members of the organization, thinking that a webinar in surrogacy, we would have 20 people, maybe 30 people would register. How many people already would register for a webinar just about surrogacy? And the registration was more than 200. Right, just before I checked, it was more than 200 people registered for this surrogacy webinar, and the numbers are jumping towards that 200 number. So I really appreciate, first of all, everyone joining us, and I have to give an amazing and just from the bottom of my heart a big yasher koach to Robin and Sal and Shani and Larry. We are the dafka specifically not telling you their last names. We're going to keep that private. We're going to keep it anonymous, but they were brave enough to show their faces, to talk about their story. And it's an honor that we will hear from both of them shortly. By way of introduction, most of the people that call Pua to discuss surrogacy, they're coming from two different angles that I alluded to earlier. They're coming from the halachic element, and they're also coming from just a place of confusion, place of just feeling lost, not knowing where to turn. And Pua really is the only Orthodox organization that I can think of that helps couples navigate the surrogacy parsha, the surrogacy journey, as well as other third-party journeys. But tonight we're going to focus on surrogacy from both elements, both the halachic component as well as the logistical component. I would say the most we'll hear from Shani and Larry, Robin and Sal, what their experiences were. But I think one of the most pressing questions that people ask is when it comes to a surrogate woman, someone that's going to carry my child, is that woman supposed to be Jewish, or is she supposed to be non-Jewish? That is a critical halachic question, and it's also a critical logistical question, because if the answer is that the surrogate has to be Jewish, so it's quite difficult to find a Jewish surrogate. If the surrogate is not Jewish, so it's a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier to find a non-Jewish surrogate. But what is the halacha? This question assumes that the halacha permits surrogacy. So does in fact the halacha even permit surrogacy? That, and we have to be transparent and we have to be honest, intellectually honest, that is a huge machlokas that goes back a number of years already. Many Rabbanim were not comfortable with the concept, with the notion of another woman carrying a child for a Jewish couple. The mother is the woman who gives birth to the baby. How could that be somebody else? Especially we're dealing with a couple who's married, and now they're going to implant their embryo into another woman. A married man implanting their embryo into another woman. Who could even think of such a thing? But the Rabbanim that Pua has discussed this question with extensively. The Rabbanim, we can list Rabbanim later on, but many of the Rabbanim take the approach that let's identify each and every issue and see if we can really figure out, is there a halachic solution for each and every detail? For instance, is the woman who carries the baby the mother or not? So if the woman who carries the child, the gestational carrier, we call it surrogacy, but really the more precise way of referring to it is the gestational carrier. So if this woman is the mother, so if she's Jewish, so then the child will be Jewish. Oh, so if the gestational carrier is Jewish, that means the child will be Jewish. That means that the father is the father, of course. He is also in fulfillment of the mitzvah of Puruvu. Wonderful. Seems like a wonderful idea to use a Jewish surrogate. The issue is that if that surrogate is married, so then if that surrogate woman is married, that other carrier is married, so then perhaps she's going to be carrying the child with the husband, the intended parent, the husband of the intended parent, and he is married to his wife. So that seems like that would be prohibited, to have a married man have a baby with another woman who's also married. So some people, for that reason, either shy away from the Jewish carrier or require the Jewish carrier to be single. And we have such cases. We actually get a number of phone calls from single women who never got married, who want to be surrogates. They want to be able to be a part of life. They want to give back to the Jewish community as surrogates. Unfortunately, even though that it's a beautiful desire, but unfortunately for them, but the way the system is, the surrogate has to have had a pregnancy and a live birth. A surrogate can't be a surrogate mother unless she has already been through the pregnancy process and has her own child or has had children. So therefore, based on that technicality, they can't serve as surrogates. But if you're looking for a Jewish single carrier, it gets very complicated. It gets very difficult to try to find that woman. Not impossible. We have, I know a number of people who've had children with Jewish single surrogates, but it's complicated. And we'll hear from our couples here what their experience was in that regard. The easier way, perhaps the more, the more optimistic approach. People are more optimistic when they have a non-Jewish carrier in the horizon. So the issues that brings is the fact that if she may be the carrier, if she may be the mother, so then the child may not be Jewish. If the child's not Jewish, so then we're going to require a gerus, a conversion with the child as a child. And that opens up so many other questions that people have. Does the gerus take place when the child is a baby? When the child is a child? Does the child have to be informed at the age of bar bas mitzvah? So these are all questions that need to be considered. And what we were discussing amongst ourselves is that the couples have so much to offer. I just wanted to highlight some of the halachic components, some of the halachic questions For instance, the gerus that takes place. Let's say the husband is a Kohen or a Levi. So how does the fact that the husband's a Kohen or a Levi, how does that fit into the fact that he is going to have a non-Jewish carrier and then a child who's going to have the conversion? Does the conversion allow that child to still be a Kohen or a Levi? Right? Usually, how could you have a convert who's also a Levi? Try to figure that out. So these questions are questions that come up all the time, and these are questions that people are reaching out to Pua for guidance. And people are also reaching out to Pua for guidance when it comes to I'm calling it the logistical questions. How practically do we find a surrogate? Which agencies would you recommend, would you not recommend? How practically do we set up escrow? How much does this cost? How much, what is my timeline? Right? There's so much to talk about. And I'm happy to speak from today until tomorrow about this topic. As a rabbi, they teach you in rabbinical school, you just talk and talk and talk and keep on talking. That's what we're talking. But I heard a nice line. Someone once said, a rabbi, he has no problem driving. Rabbis drive very smoothly. They're good drivers. But when it comes to parking the car, sometimes rabbis have issues parking. Driving, no issue. Parking, yes. But what I wanted to do tonight was not drive. I actually wanted to park and open the floor up to these two brave couples who will give you firsthand experience, firsthand knowledge about what it means to look for a surrogate, what it means to be told that your next option is surrogacy. What are the emotions involved? What's going through your mind? What's going through your heart? How does that impact you as a couple? And, Be'ezras Hashem, what will be an extremely inspiring and meaningful evening, I think will be the beginning of this conversation, because it's a conversation that is long overdue. So many people have been talking about surrogacy in private, have been told they have to go through surrogacy, but don't know where to turn, don't know where to look for that support. And it is my privilege and honor to be able to open up this conversation. Again, the first of what could be many conversations and opportunities to provide support to the community for so many people that are going through this. So without further ado, let's start with Robin and Saul on my screen there at the top. So Robin and Saul, coming from New Jersey, yeah. You guys have quite a story. Let's hear a little bit about your background, and then tell me at what point did you as a couple realize that you, in your fertility journey, that you were going to have to take this surrogacy route?
Okay, so first and foremost, thank you all for joining. We're happy you're here and we appreciate your support, and we hope to really give you hope tonight. So time frame wise, our journey from the start of needing intervention to our daughter being born was 3 years and about 3 months, which many of you are probably well past that in time frame of journeys. We got married in March of 2017, an older couple, despite how we look. I was 6 days shy of age 42 at that time. Saul had just turned 38. I personally felt that it wasn't going to happen naturally and I would need some sort of intervention through IVF, not realizing what Hashem had in store for us. So 4 months into the marriage, we started with our first intervention. And from that until we found Gwen, our surrogate, was approximately 2 years. And again, that sounds like a really short time. It is. Didn't feel short at the time, but what we went through was a lot. So in that 2 years, there were 2 IUIs, 5 egg retrievals, an ERA performed, which is basically seeing if 1 out of 4 women have an implantation timeframe that is different than the norm. So you basically go through prepping for a transfer and then they biopsy you. So we had that performed. I had laparoscopic surgery to look for endometriosis, which I did not have, but I did have inflammation. And then 3 failed frozen embryo transfers. Before the final one, and about a year into it, we switched to a reproductive immunologist Dr. Braverman's office. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. And his partner was who dealt with us most, Dr. Vidali. And through there, basically what we figured out was, and this is a real thing, I'm allergic to myself. And so my body, when my progesterone rises, whether it be through the synthetic hormones or through my regular hormones, I have an autoimmune flare. And that was what was causing the embryos to not stick. And at that point, it was okay. We were possibly going to try again, but we said, well, that's essentially wasting an embryo. Putting it in my body and trying again is pointless. We know what's happening now. And so we said, okay, it is time to see what else we could do. I was on a Facebook group through Dr. Braverman's office, and a few of the women were talking about surrogates. And from there, our surrogate journey began. For us, it was pretty short. We did not go the agency route. We went the independent journey route, otherwise known as Indie. And we did that through Facebook. And on Facebook, there are tons of matching groups where you can post about yourself and your story, pictures, what you're looking for. And surrogates also post on there. And, the hopes are that you match with somebody. And then there's also informational groups, because there's a ton of things that go into it. We started in June and matched with Gwen in August, which again is a super short time frame, but it was a roller coaster during those few months. Gwen was our fourth surrogate that we were involved with. One was, a week-long conversation. The other one was more than that, and we were starting to get ready for her medical records to be sent over, and then suddenly she disappeared. And then the third one that we were really about to move forward with suddenly just decided we weren't the right couple for her. And I thank Hashem every day that she decided we were not the right couple for her, because the next day I opened my Facebook Messenger to find a message from Gwen apologizing that she had not ever received my message. On Facebook, if you're not friends with somebody and you send a message, there's this weird secret mailbox that it could go to. And so I had written to Gwen months, well, I guess not that many months, but it seemed like months before. And she never saw it. So she went to write to me, and then my message popped up. And from there, it just, moved forward. And we matched in August. Medical clearance was in November. Contracts were done in December. Transfer was February 2020, and our daughter was born in October 2020.
Amazing.
That's in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. So I think what I want to draw from that, and then I'm gonna pass the mic over to Shani and Larry, is that what you pointed out was that your surrogate was number 4.
Yes.
Was your 4th person who you interviewed. And I think that that's something which I think everyone who is going through the surrogacy, or many people who are going through the surrogacy journey, can relate to a roller coaster experience where they have a potential lead and then something happens and a potential lead pops up again, and for whatever reason it doesn't work. So let's hear Shani and Larry. Did you have a similar story? Did you share similar experiences in terms of timeline, or surrogates coming and then leaving? Tell us a little bit about what you went through.
Okay. Also, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to speak, our settlement. Our timeline was longer. It was a longer process. We have a son, and we started a year after he was born. We started with fertility treatments again, and we had hoped it would go smoothly like the first time, and it did not. So we did about, over the course of a couple of years, we did several different IVFs and miscarriages, and what we thought, I think, was our 6th retrieval, perhaps. We were dealing with infertility, and then on top of that, when they were looking, we were about to do a transfer, we just done a retrieval, and they saw that one of my tubes was blocked. And he recommended, before I do this transfer, I have these embryos, he recommended just removing that tube because it can cause they thought maybe that's what was causing the miscarriages. So just as a part of the standard protocol, they always biopsy the tubes that are removed, and they found cancer, precancerous cells in the tubes. It was actually a miracle, really. Like, I wouldn't have known about that had it not been for the fact that my tube was blocked. I had my, and so
Wow.
yeah, it was actually, meaning I thought I was dealing with infertility. And then all of a sudden our whole world basically turned upside down. The most important thing to us at that time had been, we just want to have a second child. We want to have a sibling for our son. And then all of a sudden that was like back burner for a bit. It was like, oh my God, my health. And so I had to have a hysterectomy. So yeah. So it was a whirlwind for a while, but we had that.
Was that a quick, from the time that they found the cancer to the hysterectomy, was it quick?
Yeah, I think that was, so I did the IVF, I did the retrieval in November, and then they said, have your tubes removed. That was January. Then in March, I had the hysterectomy. So after kind of recovering from that, once you're in the IVF world, we were determined, we'd already done so many retrievals and we had these embryos. And so part of me was like, you know what, we're done. Thank God, I have my health. But we really wanted another baby. So the conversation started again. We had the embryos and we're like, let's, why can't we try surrogacy? So we started looking into it. From there, it was kind of, it was hard to go back into the IVF world after kind of stepping away from it. But
so for you, I guess, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but after a hysterectomy, so surrogacy is the next step. For some people, it's a very hard transition to come to that conclusion that I'm now transitioning from the potential pregnancy that I'm carrying myself, and now I have to make that decision that I'm actually actively going away from my own uterus and choosing another woman's uterus. For you didn't have that struggle because it was obvious there was no uterus anymore. So it's something else. But
right.
was it easy for you to come to that realization that there's going to be potentially another baby not through my uterus?
Well, honestly, I think because if we wouldn't have had these embryos, I wonder if we would have gone forward. We had them, we had them, they were frozen. And so it was like, there was so much, people on the call, if you've gone through IVF, it's so involved, it's so intensive. You give so much of yourself emotionally, financially. So I wasn't going to waste them. It was how I was like, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what's going to happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I was saying, and that was in December, I think, that we came, or was it?
Yes.
So it was from March to December, and then it was 3 years later that she was born.
So our process, from once we came to that decision that we were going to use a surrogate, there was a lot. It sounds like for you.
What was your first phone call? You called an agency? You called your friends?
I wish there would have been a webinar.
I
wish there was a webinar that we had reached out quicker than we did. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah,
honestly.
we were so just.
It was overwhelming.
Let's educate. Obviously, the first phone call was poor. I think that everyone knows that, right?
No, we did. We spoke to you very early on about which do we even be looking for, right? We were like, it's very overwhelming at the start.
But on a serious note, what advice would you give a couple that just found out that they have to go the surrogacy route? What are the first kind of check? What boxes are they checking off right away? The first three things,
Well, honestly, the first things I think that you should do is really speak to people who have gone through it in person and really find, and also learning from mistakes that maybe, now looking back, I think we're really clear about what you should look for in an agency. Or with the independent journeys, it sounds like you guys had a lot of luck with it, but we had also met somebody kind of fell into our lap that we were super excited about, but because we were doing the screening on our own, I don't think we asked the right questions necessarily, which maybe the agency was quite helpful with. kind of screening out.
So you started independent and then you transitioned over to an agency?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
we-
everyone wants to know, what agency did you actually use that
Yeah.
yielded your surrogate and your baby girl?
Oh, and they were great. Hawaii Surrogacy
Hawaii
Agency.
Surrogacy, and they had they had a woman in Utah who was experienced and ready, and so by the time we got connected to them, it was fairly
Or
quick.
right.
But we had already gone with somebody like an
Independent.
independent person who was going to set up some interviews that didn't go well, and then like a broker person who was going to get us, to make it the wait short, and then anyway, so
A lot of different.
Yeah.
Meaning with the first surrogate, it was lovely, but it turned out medically complications arose, and she couldn't.
Again, a roller coaster,
It's a roller coaster.
So I guess number one, what's important for our listeners to realize is that when they're going through when they're embarking on the surrogacy journey, they have to be ready to, it's always important to manage expectations, to be ready to meet people, potential prospective surrogates, and kind of recognize that it's very possible that that woman is not going to be your surrogate. It's important to meet her and go through the process, but it's not necessarily going to be the first one. It might take a few meetings, even I can tell you, unfortunately, stories that have just happened recently where couples were very far into the screening and it seemed very, very, very promising. And then I just heard of 2 stories today of one surrogate said thanks but no thanks, and the other surrogate just stopped picking up the phone, stopped returning their calls, and it's like is nowhere to be found. So it's an extremely emotional experience. I want to shift the conversation to the men. Saul, what were you going through as a husband, as a male, as a husband, knowing that your wife wasn't going to be pregnant, some other woman was going to be carrying your baby and not your wife? Walk us through Saul's head.
It's very tough, Rabbi. I don't know.
Give us a little glimpse.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody.
Start with your background, Saul. Tell us where you're from.
I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in a Hasidic home. Lived in Israel for about 10 years till I met my beautiful wife about 6 years ago. And then the journey started. So first of all, I never knew about such a thing as surrogacy, and I never thought it was going to happen to me. And then when things started happening, IUI, IVF, and all these procedures, obviously we saw ourselves in a situation that we thought we're never going to get out of. It got so far that Robin said before, we got to surrogacy. And it was a journey, definitely was a journey, especially for me, seeing my wife, that the pain she's going through. All she wanted to be is a mother. And for us men, it's the procedure part of it is pretty simple. Be there for support, be there for them because they're going through everything. We could just be there for a support system. And that's what I tried to do. It was very, very tough for her. But thank God now we have a beautiful 2-year-old. So again, like the rabbi said before, it's a process that you cannot let yourself be disappointed. It's a part of the spiel, as they say, boss. It's a part of the game. And I don't know, and we speak to a lot of different couples that talk to us about surrogacy, and nobody has it easy. It's just a part of the game. And you have to be ready for it, and don't, chas v'shalom, get disappointed if it doesn't go. I understand that people that are doing it, everybody has a different story why they go through surrogacy. They already went through a journey. But once you get to surrogacy, you're almost there. And just don't give up.
So tell us about speaking to your parents and your family about your journey.
It's
He said he came from a Hasidic background. Let's mention also a Satmar Hasidic background. So IVF were letters to them, no clue, and surrogacy certainly they didn't know about. So
yeah, so I did tell my when our surrogate was pregnant, I did tell my parents, and they didn't know what I was talking about. They had no idea such thing exists, such thing is even possible. My mom and my dad have 9 or 11 kids, so for them, in the Hasidic community, I would say it's taboo. It's not talked about. Even people that do, it's totally
No,
on
but
secret.
remember when we met way back when we were discussing surrogacy? Remember, we spoke to together. We had a halachic conversation. We spoke to Rav Ruben Feinstein, Rav Asher Weiss, Rav Willig. We spoke to all the rabbanim because you're the chevra, the people who you were speaking to in the Satmar community. They didn't know about these halachas. They wanted to hear what the poskim, was about your situation. So how did you even break it to them?
So basically, I had to break it down to them in ABCs. What it is, what the procedure is, and who's the Rabbana behind that. I guess the Williamsburg Rabbanim or the Baruch, the Chassidish Rabbanim, it's not a topic that's discussed. I think that's a big mistake. I think it should be. It's we're living in 2022, and there's people. There's a lot of couples that struggle with it, and I don't know why it's not more mainstream and talked about. I think
have any Hasidic couples, and then I really want to hear what Larry has to say. But Sal, have any Hasidic couples come to you after the fact, knowing that you are you grew up in the community, you understand them, you live there? Has anyone turned to you as a resource? Understanding them as better than anyone?
Many people, many, not one. I have a lot of conversation when I go somewhere. My first conversation is, you see my baby? She's a surrogate. I just, it's like, I'm so proud of it. The reason why I do that, and me and Robin made a promise to each other, if this happens, we're gonna have a baby, we're gonna be open about it so we could give hope to other couples. Wow. And I realize now, the more we talk about it, the more we realize, I'll give you one story. I have a mashpia in Israel, his name is Mata Frank.
Sure.
And Mata Frank is very big mashpia in Yerushalayim, and he's a guy that I go to. He's a guy that I speak to on a daily basis. And I told him about that. It says it's an amazing thing. You don't even know how many phone calls I get in regards to that. Then he gets a phone call from one of the chevra that his wife had cancer, and she couldn't have any kids, and they were giving up on life. They're going to get divorced. They literally gave up on life. So the Rabata says, Sal, let's go from Tina. Because Sal, I went to school with him. He's a good friend of mine. He has a baby through surrogacy. Not too long after, they sat on our table for a couple of hours. They cried, and they went on with hope. And they're already in the middle of the process.
Wow.
So I feel it's very important what's happening right now, and people should not be ashamed to talk about it. All you're doing is saying, Kol Mekayim Nefesh Achas Mi'Yisrael. It's exactly what it means. You're giving hope to couples. You're giving hope to couples that feel lost. So I think if I had enough money, I would put up billboards on the BQE. Call me. I think it's that important. I think people need to talk about it.
Amazing. And Larry, what were you feeling when your wife obviously had to have the hysterectomy for medical reasons? No question about it. But then when the surrogacy conversation became more of a reality, more of a conversation, what was going through your head and your heart, knowing that you might grow your family, but not with your wife, but with someone else, another woman? How did that was that uncomfortable for you? Was that something that was normal, so abnormal, taboo?
Wow. It was, we've been in it for so long, and my wife, so determined, and what she would go through, to make this happen. So, she was really the driving force, and I'm so grateful, because it was really, she's the one that kept it going and kept, the persistence. And yeah, she wouldn't stop. And now I'm so grateful.
Larry, I would have given up just like you. Believe me.
I want to share with everyone that when Shani's and Larry's surrogate got pregnant, so there's different levels to the pregnancy, different stages of the pregnancy and just of the surrogacy journey. And each one is a milestone. You know, matching is a milestone. A transfer is a milestone. A positive pregnancy test is a milestone. But then throughout the pregnancy is a nerve-wracking time, because you're every day, probably all hours of the day, you're thinking about this pregnancy. And actually both, I think Robin Saul and Shani and Larry had, there was a medical hurdle. There was a medical emergency that took place in the middle of the pregnancy. Shani, you want to tell us a little bit about that and how you kind of dealt with not just matching, which was amazing, and getting pregnant, your surrogate getting pregnant, but dealing with that emotional time of like, wow, my surrogate is pregnant, and you don't know what they're doing. You don't know like where they are at any given moment, what they're eating. Are they drinking, smoking? That's a concern that people have. Like, was that on your mind? And then tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, two things. I mean, in terms of it's a roller coaster, right? IVF is a roller coaster, always like the waiting and to see, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? And then you start to doubt that anything will ever work when you're trying for so long. And I think, so our surrogate was about 24 weeks when there was a real medical issue that came up. And so we were kind of just starting to like settle, oh, this is actually going to work. And then there was some serious medical issues where she had to be hospitalized. And thank God it all worked out. But I guess, well, two things. Do you want to say anything about it?
You
want me to say? Okay. Well, one, I mean, it was when we first found out there was a medical issue, obviously it was really overwhelming. And I reached out to you. I was like, I'm in for help, you know, knowing that there was somebody out there who actually really understood surrogacy and would know this is what this is about.
I remember exactly where I was when you called. I was, oh my gosh.
So I went to the backyard. We were having a very, very, very rough day. And I was actually feeling quite just awful because it wasn't clear what was going to happen. It was very serious. And I remember I reached out and just, you start to feel like, is anything ever going to work? Hashem, like why is this happening? And you really gave me a lot of reassurance that to just, to trust and to bitachon, that to let it just trust. So that's one thing. So it until you have the baby in your arms, you're never going to feel 100% sure. And
what was the second?
Oh, I had one more thing, but
yeah.
We're so tired. The other thing is, right, we're very tired.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You said.
Yeah. No. It was it was a long journey. That was a terrible day. I remember where I was when she was talking to you. But then it's all worth it. I mean, it's just all worth it. It's like I don't think about that. This is bringing it up.
Right.
But on a day-to-day basis, it's just, thank God, thank Hashem.
That's the piece I want to stress also is like now, right? Like now it's feeling so emotional, but we actually, like we're on the other side. We don't really think about it that often. And really, I guess we'll get to
you walk into your daughter's room and she stands and she looks at you from her crib. Mama. You don't say like, oh, you were born from a surrogate.
Not at all. I mean, when you have a little girl look at you, mama, like it's clear, right? That's your mama. It doesn't define it, what happened before, which is, I think that's something really important, because when you're just contemplating this, or maybe at the beginning stages of thinking about having a surrogate, you probably can't even imagine on the other side that it's actually not even part of our experience with our daughter anymore. Like we don't really think about it all that much. And so it's kind of beautiful the way it fades. It really fades as part of. I wouldn't have believed that early on. I wouldn't have believed that it's not part of our day-to-day. I wanted to just say something about what you said also about what you can't control what the surrogate does during the pregnancy, and that I think is one of the more stressful parts of the experience, just kind of having to
do you have communication with your surrogate throughout the pregnancy, like constant communication?
So I think it really depends on the personality of the surrogate. So our surrogate happened to be more reserved, I think. So it did feel a little bit more businessy than I think maybe, Robin, it sounded like it was more like, it felt like a business relationship than like a friendship. So she was lovely and we trusted her that she was going to be doing what she needed to be doing, but we weren't like calling every night to like coo to the baby. Like that wasn't.
Put the phone on your belly. We're going to sing now. Malach HaGoyel.
Yeah.
Right, like we sent a song or something, and like I don't know if it was played or
Or
you
not.
know.
You have to let go.
Yeah.
When I was pregnant with my son, I mean, I was the type of person who only ate like organic, and I did prenatal yoga, and just in this, you have to let go and just trust. Like,
Did you put anything in place? Like no, this food, a lot of this food, or
I did, because that was important to me. I did, but it wasn't something I was gonna check up on, or
Right.
we requested, certain diet.
And what about you, Robin and Saul?
So our experience and relationship with our surrogate is very different. Basically, I say that Gwen is my girl soulmate, and we talked. Thank you. We talked every day, all day, and we still do. I mean,
Where does she live? Where does your surrogate live?
In Wisconsin. In Wisconsin.
And Shani and Larry, where was yours?
Utah.
Utah. You mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah. So, Gwen's family, she has 3 kids of her own, and her husband, not this past July, the July before, they came to New Jersey and stayed with us in our home for a week. And, we had, like I said, constant communication every day. We were the let's sing a song people. So there are these things called belly buds, and it's an app, and you record your voice singing, telling stories into the app. And then Gwen had, it looks like EKG things, and she would put it on her stomach and play what we had recorded on the app. And at a certain week, I'm not sure what week, the baby can start to hear. And so the idea is to get them used to your voice.
And did you check up? Like she took pictures, she FaceTimed you?
Oh,
like you
yeah.
knew she was doing that?
She would just send us random videos of, like, you could see kicks in her belly. And yeah, I mean, it was amazing. We also had a Doppler, so that we bought and sent to her. So every Thursday we would have FaceTime and do the heartbeat. So, and that, yeah, so that, just made me feel better to hear the heartbeat every Thursday, and, just more involved. I mean, for me, end goal was healthy baby. Was I sad that I didn't get to feel our daughter kick from the inside? Yes. But, my feeling is, this was the journey we were meant to be on. And had Hashem not had this plan for us, we would not know Gwen and her family, and I would not want to not know Gwen and her family. So, but the hurdle, ours was at about 18 weeks, and Gwen had a huge bleed. Like she said, not to be graphic, but like full of blood squirting on the wall, then happened again an hour later. And
yeah.
And she said, had she not had the Doppler, she would have thought that it was done. But they used the Doppler, and they could hear that the heartbeat was strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm sure she went to the hospital shortly thereafter.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And they were actually living in Texas at the time. For her husband's work, they had to come back to Wisconsin and then start with, the specialist. She was on couch rest for about a week. And it was really scary because basically the conversation with the doctor was like, okay, well, I can't think of the term now. 24 weeks is basically, I can't think of the term.
Viable.
Thank you.
Viable pregnancy, yeah. Viable,
yeah. At week 24 is viability. So we have 6 weeks to get there. And that was just like, it's the longest 6 weeks. But I mean, I think at that point we were doing the Doppler like every day, and, Gwen had a bunch of appointments, and, thank God, everything worked out fine.
I just think at that time, too, when you're going through the surrogacy, and that's what we constantly hear from other people, is that what's going on, that it's called the unknown, the fact that I don't know. It's almost like messing with our minds. That's when you have to be, I think it's easier to get to the surrogacy than, well, she's already pregnant, those 8 months or whatever is much, much tougher because you
Wow.
already got there. Now we're like almost in the end of the race. You don't want it
But
to
you're
fail.
not there until you're there.
Yeah, yeah. So, but you're already getting there. So I think that's very important. If somebody's going to go through surrogacy, just stay calm. Like you said, a little bit of bitachon, a little bit of that, and just
Okay, you can have a lot of bitachon also. It won't hurt.
true.
And a lot of amuna.
Yeah.
Tell me about the birth. Let's fast forward because I want to allot an hour for tonight's event. We can always have follow-up events, and we encourage everyone to. And I also want to leave a little bit of time for questions if people want to put some questions into the chat box. But you all have our at least my email, Pua's contact information, and we'll share. I think if I'll say this again, but if you want to be in contact directly with Robin and Sal or Shani and Larry, reach out to me and I'll be happy to give you their contact information. But I kind of just want to get through kind of every piece of the process before we go. Let's go to the birth. So both Shani and Larry and Robin and Sal found their surrogate. Robin and Sal, you found more independent. Shani and Larry tried the independent route, ended up going to the agency. Baruch Hashem, the transfer was successful. The pregnancy was a good pregnancy. Both couples had their medical emergency, one at 24 weeks, one at 18 weeks. Baruch Hashem, that was behind them. Now let's go to the birth. So Shani and Larry, let's hear what was the finish line like? What did you have to do? Did you have to travel?
Yeah, we flew out to
a little bit
Utah.
about
It was
that.
actually Hanukkah. We flew out the last couple of days, like the 6th night of Hanukkah, and she was born right after Hanukkah. And I mean, it was amazing. We were in the room, right as she was born, our baby was born.
When did you had to travel?
We went to Utah. Where
Yeah.
How far in advance did you go?
So we went only a couple days in advance. It was a scheduled delivery. And so it was early. I think it was a week early, and she had history of giving birth late. So we felt pretty comfortable.
Felt confident.
Yeah. I'm a little nail biting, but that's what we did. And then we were right in the room when she gave birth, and it's immediate, meaning the baby came out and she was ours.
And like literally less than 10 minutes later, we were in our room with the baby. And then I think we went back to see her maybe that night, and then the next day, and the surrogate's mom was there, and then pretty soon after we said our goodbyes, and then
we stayed for another several days in Utah, and it
came
was
home.
beautiful.
Came home to Atlanta like a week later with the baby, and she met her brother, and my sister was here. It was amazing.
Wow. So I think Robin and Sal have a little bit of a different story.
Yes. Yeah. So for us, Gwen had been a surrogate before. Her with the previous surrogate baby and her own kids, Gwen would deliver, sometime after 37 weeks, 38 weeks. And for us, it was the Chagim time in October 2020. So we wanted to go and be there before Sukkot started. So we hopped in the car, I think it was like 2 days or whatever it was after Yom Kippur. And Gwen had her 37-week appointment. She said, good thing you're in the car. I'm 2 centimeters dilated. Now, that was 37 weeks. Our daughter wasn't born till 38 weeks, 6 days, which this is kind of funny. Like on the way there, we wanted to spend time with them. I know in my mind, I was like, I don't want her to be born yet, because then that means we have to leave quickly. We want to spend time with Gwen and the family. Like this was the plan. Wow. So our daughter came, almost 2 weeks later. We lived in Wisconsin for a total of 19 days. We rented an apartment that was a few blocks away from them. We had the Chabad come and they put up a sukkah in their backyard. And then 5 days after our daughter was born, we hopped back in the car and drove
back to New Jersey.
New Jersey, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I have two more questions, and then I want to open the floor up for chat questions you can put in the chat. How did your community welcome you? How did they welcome you? Was it awkward? Were people weird? Was it uncomfortable to come to shul? Like last week, you didn't have a baby and you didn't have a belly. And this week you have a baby and there's still no belly. So like, first of all, did everybody know? And for the people that didn't know, it's like, wait, is that your baby? Like, how is that possible? So was it uncomfortable? Was it awkward?
First of all, I always had a belly before the pregnancy. Number two is, like I said to your rabbi, we were very vocal about it from day one. So we had a kiddush in Teaneck, we had a kiddush in Williamsburg, and we had a kiddush in Monroe. So we had 3 different places because I was very vocal about it, and I was never going to be quiet about it. So,
but people knew we were looking for a surrogate, and at a certain point, we said we were going to stop talking about it because we didn't want a million questions. You know, did you find one? Is she pregnant? Is that the other thing? Yeah. So we had stopped talking about it, and I'm a big Facebook person, and one of our requirements was that Gwen didn't post anything until the baby was born, and we posted and tagged her, and then it was a free-for-all for all of us. So people, again, being old, people were like, couldn't wait for me to get married, and were happy when I did. And then that night when we announced that we had a baby, I think we might have shocked half the world. And they were just so happy and so excited. And, you know.
So going back to shul wasn't awkward. No. Walking to shul with a baby was not awkward for you. And no. What about you, Shani? Oh, sorry, you want to say something, Robin?
I was just going to say, people were like, I don't know how you kept your mouth closed for so long. That was the best secret that you ever kept.
What about you guys, Shani and Larry?
Initially I had been concerned what that would be like to, would people be shocked? And we were so touched by our community. People that we barely know brought us meals. They were just so excited and just so incredibly supportive. I had been concerned that maybe I'd feel uncomfortable, and it was quite beautiful to feel such love from people.
I think the email from the shul said via surrogate, right? I think so. It was out there, but there were some people that didn't read that or didn't know, and then all of a sudden we were on the street with the baby, walking the baby.
Oh, your niece is here. It's like, no, it's actually mine.
Yeah. But people were lovely.
People were amazing.
Lovely. That's what was so interesting.
Nobody would.
I didn't have any. People can sometimes say the wrong thing, and I didn't feel that. It was interesting.
Mm-hmm. My almost last question. I know that we're not going to discuss it tonight, although it's a very important topic, and that's finances. It's really expensive, right? I think, maybe we'll just throw out a number just so people get a little bit of a realistic understanding. Would both of you, and I'm not going to ask your personal experiences, but would both of you say that it's fair if a caller would inquire, like, how much is the process from start to finish? Is it fair to throw out like 125,000? Is that a fair number?
Yes.
So $125,000 is a very expensive undertaking. It's a very expensive ordeal. I want to share something that Robin told me earlier today, that she told me, and you're here, so I don't even have to tell people, you can say it yourself, but like money, of course, money is an issue. It's an obstacle, but it wasn't, for you, it didn't feel like it was something that was going to be the reason why you weren't going to have a child.
No way, no how.
And,
we were very open. We did a GoFundMe. We had garage sales.
So we made exactly $6.
No. What I was saying to you earlier was, it is a big number, and it's like, wow, but we took each donation for what it was. And in my mind, the garage sale at my brother's house that yielded $150, what did that pay for? That paid for one hotel night stay when Gwen and Kyle had to come in for medical clearance. Okay, check that off the list. So I compartmentalized it to make it more feasible. opened credit cards that had 0% financing for 18 months. I mean, money was not going to stop us, and you just, figure it out. Loans, grants, it might take longer than you want, but you find a way and just, pray to Hashem.
Given the expensive nature of the journey, if you were given the opportunity to do it again, both of you have one child, Hashem. If you were given the opportunity, and let's assume that money was taken care of between different loans and grants, etc. Shani and Larry, would you do it again, or was one roller coaster surrogacy experience enough, and that's all?
Well, we've discussed this. The surrogacy experience would not deter. We would do that again. It's more, we're not ready to go through that again. But it's incredibly. I mean, it's the best money spent. It's incredibly worth it. It was a beautiful, beautiful. We're just so thankful we had that experience, that we were even lucky enough to be able to do it. That people are willing to, we're so lucky we found, even though we weren't close to our surrogate per se, but just the fact that somebody was willing to offer us that opportunity it's really beautiful for us.
Yeah, when she was turned 1 and I sent the picture to the surrogate, and she just wrote back, that she was so glad that she could, help us.
Yeah.
Nice. And what about you, Robin and Sal?
Yeah, same thing, given the opportunity, we would do it again.
Knowing the like the rabbi refers to it as a roller coaster, it was fun. It was fun.
I think you could say that now. I'm sure your wife is going to give you a little pop.
I just want to say, meaning my experience, right? There's so much, the whole experience of infertility and dealing with this. There's so much grief and there's so much loss that anyone who's on the call has had to experience some type of loss, right? There's so much there, and I think it's important to honor how much pain there can be in the experience. And then there's the pain, and then there's also every day we have this beautiful daughter, right? So they're both true, right? We can hold both of them at the same time. There's real loss in this, and I don't want to kind of whitewash that.
Yeah.
But when you kind of accept these are the choices, right? We can take this route to have a baby. We're going to do it, right? And now we have this beautiful baby girl that we don't really think about the fact that.
No, you don't think about it's a surrogate, but you don't think. It just doesn't cross your mind. It's like your child.
And you can
just about the
right,
losses,
right. You can mourn the loss of not being able to carry yourself, but at least for us, the goal was a healthy child, and this was the way that Hashem intended it to be. And I just want to say that Gwen knows that we're doing this, and this is what she wrote. I'm so excited for you. I am saying, okay, now the tears are going to start. I'm saying a prayer for a well-received message and for hearts to be filled with hope. So that's from Gwen, and we hope we are filling your hearts with hope.
So, on that note, Robin, give us your parting message. What final message would you give to all of the listeners here? More than 100 people are on this call right now, listening to you, watching you, and really gaining from you. So, Sal, you can say it in English or in Yiddish, whatever you like.
I saw Greenwald is over there. I want to give a message to people that when all seems lost, when everything seems so dark, there's so much light. It's like, I'm not going to use the term "there's light at the end of the tunnel." We've used that a million times, but it is true. And when it's so dark, it's so much light. And you have to remember, for me, it was just a little bit of Amunah and Batochen. That's all it was. Even so many obstacles, so many dark moments in this beautiful journey, and it's going to be. But you have to be very strong. That something so beautiful is going to come out. Is going to come out of this journey, and like the rabbi said. I'm not going to put my number out here, but anybody that needs any help, we'll spend any amount of time with them, any amount, no matter when it is, just reach out to us. We'll live in New Jersey. I'm not going to say where, but close to Teaneck.
Very close to Teaneck.
Very close to Teaneck. So you can always reach out. We understand the importance of the community, that they should know that there's hope out there. And I'm sure for Larry and Shani, like there was not that much people that you could reach out to talk about this. Now it's becoming more mainstream. Thank you to the rabbi. And I think it's so important, like any other organization, that people should know that there's hope out there and there's beautiful people out there that are willing to help with whatever they need.
Amazing. Amazing. Shani, Larry, what would be your parting message? Final thoughts for the people here today.
Perseverance, but really stick with it, right? There's an obstacle, but if you focus on the goal and to really know that as hard as it is getting there is the other side, right? And when you're there, it couldn't be better. It really couldn't be better.
Unbelievable.
So thankful. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your support.
My pleasure. For me, it's like a tremendous nakas. So like, I remember both of you. I remember meeting Sal and Robin in my house in Queens years ago. I remember, Shani, that first time you called me. The truth is, I remember the first time you called me, I was in the car. I couldn't pick up. It was a whole mess. By the time we ended up connecting, and now we fast forward years later, we're having a webinar where we're celebrating this journey and the successful journey where both of you have babies. Both of you have beautiful baby girls from this. I mean, who would have thought that years ago when I picked up that call that, we would be Zooming together, giving chizuk to so many people. So I want to just reiterate to all the people here that Shani and Larry, Robin and Saul, although there are two people here, each one of them represents an entire community. They all have friends. I know that Robin and Sal and Shani and Larry are in different groups, have different support systems. There are people out there who have the same story, the same situation, or similar stories, similar situations, and we're able to help so many people. So many people who feel like they're alone are really not alone. This is a huge community. And really the main objective that we wanted to accomplish tonight in tonight's webinar was to get that message across, that surrogacy, people who need to have their children via surrogacy, is not a unique and outlier situation in the Jewish community. It's something which is so real. It is so much a part of every Jewish community. Inevitably, there are people who are going through these types of issues, and we should be there for each other for support, and Puah is there for everyone to help them to be that resource, that address for the halachic, for the medical, even for the financial struggles and hurdles that this process throws your way. But I think what's clear, and we'll end with this, what's clear from both couples was that there is so much light, there is so much hope, there's so much goodness and so much simcha and joy that is waiting for you. The journey is not a simple one. It's not an easy one. It's not an overnight fix. Oh, I don't have a uterus. Oh, I can't get pregnant. Okay, so tomorrow, it doesn't work like that. But through the perseverance, through the strength that we can each give each other, we'll be able to, Be'ezus Hashem, find that surrogate who is best for us, and Be'ezus Hashem, have that most delicious little baby.